And welcome, good morning, and welcome to this next episode of Stroke of Genius, which is being renamed. It is now called Radical Vision for Disabilities. So we've got a great show lined up for you for today. I am so glad you're here. Oh, this is going to be awesome. Oh, we've got other good things that are coming in store for you for next week, so stick around until the end. But I am going to tell you a little bit about the person that's coming on. Her name is Alyson, and Alyson has been through quite a lot, as she's going to tell you. So I don't want to steal her thunder. Without any further ado, let's bring on Alyson.
Hi,
everybody.
Hey. Hi, Brian.
Good morning, Alyson. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's good to see you.
Oh,
I got to ask you, Alyson, tell me, when is your first recollection of knowing your vision?
Well, it was definitely when after the pandemic started and I started reflecting on everything that was going on in my life and that I'd been through. And I looked at my kids and I said, you know what? These little guys were all that hope that I had always had. And I'd been through so much darkness. I had been through so many bad things in my life. I was like, you know what? I think other people need to hear it. And it needs to be that unfiltered, real, okay, if you have a question and it's a hard question, go ahead, ask it. Because I'm not afraid to answer it. Because if I can be vulnerable with other people, then they can learn to be vulnerable with themselves.
Yeah, that's great. If you want to hear more, stick around. Alyson, it is so good to have you on. Thank you so much for making time out of your day to be on.
Of course.
This is great. This is very cool. So you've already given us a little bit of the taste of what you're going to talk about, but if you would, tell me your story.
Of course. Well, I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My family was kind of poor and we moved around a lot. It was really, really hard for us. I was really smart, but I never understood why I couldn't make friends, and I would get bullied all the time. It was never really something that stopped. I had people who were kind of fair weather friends. They'd be around until I really couldn't do anything for them anymore, and then they'd just kind of throw me to the wayside. So I thought, okay, when I go to college, this is going to get better. It's going to get better. It has to get better. It didn't. College was confusing. I couldn't focus. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And since I didn't know what I wanted to do, I was kind of focused on my relationships. The guy I was dating for the majority of my time in college, kind of blindsided me by breaking up with me after us being together for 2 years. That was in about 2008. And shortly after our breakup, I basically rebounded to the first person who showed me any sort of attention, said he loved me, said this was important, like I was super important to him. He could see us spending our lives together. I was young, naive. I was incredibly trusting. I still am. But so I got together with him, and that was my third year in college. And I was in spring semester. 2 weeks before spring semester ended. 2 weeks before spring semester ended, my mom called me and told me that I didn't have anywhere to come home to. That we were, in easiest terms, we were homeless. We didn't have anywhere to go. That all of us had to find somewhere to go. My brother went and stayed with a friend for the summer. My dad was sneaking in to stay with my grandma at the retirement village that she lived in. And my mom was staying with her cousin who had, I do believe, 7 children. So there really wasn't a lot of space for me to even come and stay there. I had to call a friend that I hadn't seen in a long time and ask her if I could stay with her mom for a couple weeks until the dance recital that I had taught, I had choreographed, I was actually performing in. I had to be there for it. So she called her mom. Her mom said, yes, you can stay. And I did. After those 2 weeks, I moved to Columbus and moved in with the guy I was dating at the time. And that's really when I kind of realized that I didn't want to go back to school. I dropped out of school and I started being kind of pushed into modeling more. And because I had a dancer's body, I was really what the guy I was dating at the time said. He said I was very beautiful. So he said, you should work. You should be a model. You should go work at a club and do this and do all this. And I did. I went and worked at a club. I dropped out of school. I never went back. And as soon as I said I wasn't going back to school was when the abuse with him started. It started more by looking like controlling. It was just controlling things. He didn't really like me doing anything for myself. I had to do things for him. I remember the one time when I really started noticing and the red flags really started going up was I got really sick. I have a lot of health problems. One of the most prevalent at the time was my asthma. It wasn't being controlled because I didn't have health insurance. I couldn't go to the doctor. I ended up getting really, really sick and having a really bad asthma attack. I remember laying on the courtyard of our apartment complex, basically turning blue. And he didn't want to take me to the hospital. It was going to interfere with his plans for the evening, and I wasn't going to be able to go to work. And it was just a big deal until somebody came by. And then he's like, oh, Allie, I'm so sorry. Let's go. Let's get you to the hospital. Found out I had pneumonia. So I was put on steroids and antibiotics and needed to fill those. And since I needed to fill them, I needed to go to the pharmacy. I remember getting ready to jump in the car and go to the pharmacy with him, and he looked at me, and I'm in my pajamas because I don't feel good. I'm not going to put on anything other than my pajamas because I don't feel good. And he said, no girl of mine is walking out of this house in a pair of sweatpants. And he stood there. He picked out clothes, made me get dressed, made me do my makeup, my hair, and everything, and wear high heels to go pick up antibiotics and steroids. At that point, I realized something was really kind of wrong. And shortly after, I found out he had been cheating on me and everything else. I fast forward to the end of 2008. I got a phone call from my mom, and she said my brother was in the hospital. My brother was the healthiest person in our house, so him being in the hospital was a problem. And my boyfriend didn't want to take me back to Pittsburgh. So I said, okay. I was like, all right, if he's still in the hospital tomorrow, then I'm going to go. We have to go home. He took my phone when I left for work. I came home from work and I walked in and he looked kind of odd. And he asked me how my day was, which he never asks me how my day is. Never had asked me that, ever. Asked me how much money I made, never asked me how my day went. And I walked over and I was trying to tell him about it. And I took my phone and I was like, okay, I need to call my mom and ask her how my brother is. And he handed me my phone and I remember flipping it open to call her. And he looked right at me and he was like, oh, by the way, your brother's dead. And I didn't know what happened. I didn't understand. I threw the phone that I had against the wall and it broke into pieces. So I had to take that. That was when we still had SIM card, the little itty bitty SIM cards you could transfer to a different phone real fast.
Yeah.
Transferred it, called my mom, and she was like, your brother hung himself at work yesterday. And they were able to revive him long enough to have friends and family come say goodbye. She's like, but we had to take him off life support because he was an organ donor and he was 19 years old. So they had to do what he had wanted them to do. Finally, March 2009, he and I broke up. And right after we broke up, we were at his parents' house and we went to church with them that weekend. And that was the weekend that I found Jesus in the most unexpected place, most unexpected way. I prayed with his dad to accept Jesus, and his family actually paid for my apartment for a few months, paid my utilities, made sure my phone was paid so that I could go find a job. They kept him away from me, everything, so that I could go find a job. April of 2009, got my job at Papa John's. By that summer, I was a shift manager. And at the end of the summer, I had been at church. I'd been doing all sorts of stuff, not thinking about anything. In walked my husband.
Bum-ba-da.
It's like it came out. We built a friendship throughout the rest of 2009. And I was apparently the first person who told him that I was excited and proud of him for joining the military. He had been told that he was a disappointment and all of these things by people that he thought would be excited for him. And there I was, just his manager, his friend, and I just told him, I was like, no, I'm really proud of you. This is exciting. Like, you're going for what you want to do. So go for it. Like, I'm behind you every step of the way. And beginning of January, when he officially left the company because he was going to be leaving for basic, he asked me to officially be his girlfriend. 2 weeks later, he proposed to me. A week after that, he left for basic. And then he graduated from basic May 21st of 2010. We were married May 28th of 2010.
Awesome.
And we've been together ever since. We've been through 2 deployments for him, 2 combat deployments to Afghanistan. We had a miscarriage after our first infertility treatment. Our second infertility treatment gave us our daughter. She is now 6, and she has autism. And unfortunately, when we went to have our second child, we went through almost a year of infertility treatments until we finally got pregnant. We got pregnant with a little boy. And in March of 2017, I realized that I hadn't felt him move for a couple days. And they had told me it was normal. I had an anterior placenta, all these crazy things. And I was like, okay. I had an at-home Doppler and I couldn't find his heartbeat. And I was like, okay, something's wrong. And this is where I will warn everybody. It sounds like a movie that should be on like Lifetime or Hallmark. It sounds like this is a movie. I promise you it's not. I wish it was a movie.
It's real life.
But it's not. This was my life. I remember my husband called to make the appointment. Andrew had to call because I couldn't call them to make the appointment for me to come in just to have like a check to just, well-being check. And I remember pulling in, and it was kind of chilly. It was March, so it was kind of chilly, but it was pouring down rain, absolutely pouring down rain. And I had the local radio station, The River, on, and a song I had never heard before came on right as we pulled in. And it's called Your Hands by J.J. Heller. And I listened to the chorus, and it said, when my world is shaking, heaven stands. And when my heart is breaking, I never leave your hands. And in that moment, I knew what the answer was going to be when I walked through those doors. I didn't really need them to do the ultrasound. I didn't need them to check for the heartbeat. I knew it wasn't there. I felt like that was God's way of telling me, I have him. He's okay. And you're going to be okay. It didn't feel like it when you walk in and they do the ultrasound and they check and they tell you, I'm sorry, he's gone. And now there's this whirlwind of, okay, we got to get somebody here to watch Andy, our oldest. We got to get somebody here to watch her. We've got to get the induction planned, because if I don't deliver him, I'm risking my own life at that point. Right. And March 8th at 7:36 p.m., our son came into the world. His name was Elijah, and he was perfect in every way. And it was the most confusing moment of my life, because I was so happy to look at him and check his fingers and his toes, and he was perfect and he looked great. And he had, he had my husband's nose, and had my chin, had my eyebrows. And I was like, oh, I wonder what color his eyes are. And when I went to turn to show him to my husband, I realized that there was a nurse holding my husband up off of the floor, because he was sobbing so hard. And that was basically when the glass kind of shattered and everything kind of started falling apart. We had a really hard time dealing with, losing your child. That wasn't obviously in our plan. We weren't very happy and we were fighting a lot. I was having a hard time. That was basically the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I ended up in therapy and diagnosed with PTSD from not only from losing my son, but from the past relationship and from other issues that had come up throughout my life that I couldn't deal with anymore on my own. Thankfully, I found a wonderful place. They helped me through all of it. And then all of a sudden I started having weird dreams. I didn't know what that meant. That was a really odd situation. How do you explain to your husband that you're having a dream about a name and it's coming up in marquee lights? I'm dreaming about the name Aaron. Why is this coming up and it's spelled Arin? I'm like, what in the world is this? And then my grandma started showing up. And I was like, why is my grandma in my dream? Like she passed away a few years ago. Like, why is she in my dream? And then the last one I had was right before we started trying to get pregnant again, was this little boy came running up to me in my dream. He had dark hair, like my husband, had bright green eyes. And he looked at me, he came running to me and he said, Mommy, 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 look at the baby. And he's handing me a baby. And I woke up, cold sweat, shaking, freaking out, because I'm like, what is that? How does this happen? And I looked at my husband and I was like, Andrew, I think we're supposed to try again, even though we had decided not to do that.
Yeah.
And we had our first infertility treatment and we had a miscarriage. And my husband was really concerned that we weren't going to go through with doing this again. And I was like, no, we're at our out-of-pocket maximum for the year. The insurance company's covering all of this. So let's just try until the end of the year.
Right.
Next cycle, we got pregnant with our boy-girl twins. And
nice.
Summer of 2019, I ended up with severe preeclampsia severe atypical preeclampsia with severe features. I ended up in the hospital with double vision and blurred vision and headaches and abdominal pain, and I was 31 weeks pregnant. So they did all the testing and they finally came back in and looked at me. They're like, oh yeah, your protein threshold is like 300. You were over 700, edging towards 800. They're like, we've already cleared the OR. You're delivering today. And I was like, okay, not planned. They each spent time in the NICU, but now, we're happy. We're healthy for the most part. We're all taking care of ourselves now. We have health problems. We have all sorts of fun things going on in this house, but like right now is nap time.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. What a great story. I know there's lots of heartache and lots of bad stuff in that story as well, but the end is what matters, I think.
Yeah.
So
not over yet. The story keeps going.
Yeah. We keep making our own story, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Well, that's great. So what would you say would be the hardest time you went through?
For me, it was all the losses that I had to handle, because especially like I had a miscarriage before my husband left for his second deployment. That one was the worst for me because we had been trying for years to get pregnant, and we finally got pregnant, and I lost the baby, and I was just like, God, what is going on? I don't remember being more angry with God in my entire life. And then we lost our son in 2017. I had lost my mom. I had lost all sorts of people who meant so much to me. And it was really hard to deal with. And I know that's kind of shocking considering like I've been through an abusive relationship and I've dealt with that. I would never want to go through that again. Yeah. But what was the worst thing for me was knowing that as a woman, like you're built to, like, we know from the beginning, like we're the ones that are supposed to have the baby. Like we're supposed to get pregnant. We're supposed to carry the baby. We're supposed to our bodies are supposed to do that. And my body, one, doesn't do it naturally on its own anyway. and
Right.
then having losses and then losing our son at 24 weeks. Like, I knew that it could happen, but I never thought it would happen to me.
Hmm. So I have another question for you in regards to how you stay steadfast. But before you answer that, I want to encourage our listeners to share this video out with other people, because that's how we make this community bigger. And it's really important for us all to just share this out with as many people as you can. So do that on your timelines, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever it is. Also, do me a favor and put a picture of you winking in your timeline. And that picture, again, is to make sure that you understand what makes you unique. So in the picture, put in a hashtag of Brian with one eye, hashtag winking with Wagner, but then also tag me on that picture as well. So that's how we go about doing it. And what will happen is you'll be entered into a raffle for a free copy of my book. Sometimes it does take a brain surgeon. Now, back to you, Alyson. How do you stay steadfast?
Honestly, I look at my kids, I look at my husband, and I tell myself, I'm like, okay, I know that God's with me right now. I know that he's going to hold me through whatever I have to go through. And I look at my kids and my family, and I know they need me and I need them. And if we all need each other, it's the best situation for me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I love it. So, and also, if you would please also, if you have any comments or questions, please put them in the comment section, because we'd love to answer them. So while I have Alyson on here, also want to make sure that that running across the bottom there is Brian with Brian Wagner Live, and there's where you can sign up for some information, and it'll be a continuing of more information for me. You'll be able to get in the insiders side of things with Radical Vision, which is the company that I own, and I own the company that I have, and the company that I have to help people to embrace their own personal blindness to achieve a greater vision for their lives. So please join that. If you have any questions, by all means, let me know. Alyson, I got to ask you, how do you keep going?
There are days that it's hard. I mean, there are days that I wake up and I literally am just like, okay, I just want to stay in bed a little bit longer. I just want to stay here today. Like, I'm having a rough day. There are days that I get out of bed and I'm an emotional wreck. But I know that there are not just my family, but there are people out there that need to know that you're going to have bad days. There are going to be some days that it may be the only thing you can do is get out of bed for the day. You may not be able to function properly or do anything else. You may only be able to take a really deep breath and be like, okay, I've accomplished something today. But if you're going through something that's hard, like I go through things that are hard every day. I have Asperger syndrome. It makes it hard to function sometimes, especially in a pandemic where I have to go out. I can barely read people's faces when they're uncovered, let alone when you have a mask on your face. I'm like, okay, yeah, I have no clue if you're mad at me, if you're happy, are you smiling? Like, what you doing under there? Because I don't know what you're doing. And then having children who have special needs myself, I mean, it's knowing, okay, if I can show them that I can get through this, they'll know, and they'll be able to help other people do that too. And if I can help one person with my story, then I feel like it wasn't all for nothing, and that God's blessed me with even the hardest moments in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. So tell me, what was the best time you've gone through?
Best time I've gone through. Oh, there's been a lot of them, but I'd say it's honestly, it's just been each day, honestly, is probably my best day. It may not seem like it, but I can look back and I look at it and I'm like, okay, yeah, like it's another day. I mean, when I was younger, my grandma told me that I wasn't going to live past 21 because I wouldn't eat my vegetables. And I remember going to her on my 21st birthday and being like, hey, grandma, I'm still alive. And she's like, the year's not over yet. I was like, are you kidding me?
Grandma?
But like, I look back on like each day and I'm like, okay, yeah, like the day I lost my son, it was a horrible day, but I also think that, okay, that day that my son Elijah went to be with God, he never had, every parent wants their kid to never feel pain, to never have to feel hurt or sad or cry. Like, I mean, my goodness, it breaks my heart just hearing even somebody else's kid or somebody else cry. Like, it breaks me apart because I feel everything very, very deeply, whether it's my own emotions or someone else's. And knowing that my son will never have to feel pain, never have to worry about that stuff, that's every parent's dream. I wish he was here with me. But at the same point, he opened his eyes and he saw Jesus. I'm a little bit jealous that he saw him before me.
Yeah. So what's your vision?
It's just, there is hope in the darkness. It's hard to see it. Sometimes you're not going to be able to find a light. And sometimes you just have to be that light. Regardless of what you believe in, whether you believe in God or you just believe that, okay, we're just kind of moving forward, whatever that is, it's sometimes you have to be willing to be like, okay, I'm going to be the light. Because if you can be a light for yourself and help yourself be that way, then you don't realize how many other people you're going to help too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's great advice. Great advice for everybody out there. For me, I take that to heart. So thank you for that. So tell me, what's a typical day or a typical morning look like for you?
Well, right now, like I said, it's nap time. Mornings are pretty crazy in this house. It's oldest has to get on the bus. So it's getting her up, crying her out of bed, and then trying to get her to do what she's supposed to do all morning to get herself ready for school. While we have our son, he likes to get up extra early. So my husband normally gets up with him and helps keep that under control.
Yeah.
Well, right now he likes to climb out of his crib, so that's a big problem. His twin sister, she is the one that likes to sleep, so we have to go wake her up when our oldest is leaving for school. My husband has college classes, and those are hybrid, so some of them are online, some of them are in person, so we're dealing with all of that, and it's just okay. It's like I just take a deep breath as soon as like everybody chills out. I'm like, okay, movie time. We're going to put on Monsters Inc. or we're going to put on a Tinkerbell movie. Somebody's watching Disney right now because mom needs to sit down and breathe for a second.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that.
And then they take a nap, and I'm just like, can I join you?
Right. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, yeah. As soon as I'll fall asleep, they're going to wake up and tear apart my living room.
Well, I'll tell you, I can't tell you how happy I am that you joined us today. This has been great.
Well, thank you so much for having me. This was absolutely wonderful.
What would you leave our audience with if you could?
Everybody out there, I just want you to know that if you can't love yourself, just know that I love you, God loves you, and that there are people out there that do love you, that they're cheering for you. I'm cheering for you. I don't know you, but I'm cheering for you. If you have something that you want to do, go for it, because you're going to show a lot of people that somebody's going to say you can't do it.
Yeah.
You can. Don't worry.
Yeah. So, my friend Allie Dennis came on here. So she says, thanks for sharing your story, Alyson. I'm happy you found peace. How do you overcome PTSD symptoms, and what are resources you would recommend?
Well, wonderful question. Thank you, Allie. For my PTSD symptoms, it's a lot of trying to avoid things that trigger me and also embracing the things that are hard. My husband has PTSD from being in the military, so he went through prolonged exposure therapy. That was really helpful for him. For me, it was finding the right counselor and the right process for myself. I chose that I didn't want to take medication, so it was a matter of learning what were my triggers. So you have to figure out what those are, and a professional counselor is an amazing person. I went through Christian counseling. We did a lot of like music therapy and things that were easy for me to relate to, but I mean, find somebody who can help you talk through it, because it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, and it's really different for everybody, right?
Oh, it's very different. What happens with my husband whenever he has issues with his PTSD are very different than mine. When my PTSD shows up, it's normally I'm overly emotional, I kind of shut down, and I have a hard time functioning or relating to people. Whereas when my husband has his issues and it's normally his are mostly flashbacks or really bad nightmares and things like that, where like I have to help wake him up. He's on medications to help keep that stuff under control, and he's in consistent and prolonged counseling to understand that.
And there's Brittany. She came on to say that you're a light. Thank you for being brave enough to share.
Thanks, Brittany. That's
Yeah.
that's my friend Brittany. That is, she is the godmother of all three of my children.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining in, Brittany. This is great. And Allie. And everybody else that's on, whether you're on live or you're on a hashtag or on a replay. Either way, really appreciate that. So, and as always, again, share this video out with as many people as you can. Well, thank you again so much, Alyson.
Of course, I love being here, and if you ever need me again, you know where to find me.
All right. All right. Well, I'm going to close this out, but you hang out in the green room, and I'll be right back.
No problem.
All right. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
All right. Bye. Wow. Wow. What a great story. What a great message. What a great speaker. So Alyson Core did a great job, and I'm just so thankful that she joined us today. So we've got lots of good stuff happening next week. So we have speakers that are coming on. So one speaker is Mari Ryan. She's going to come on. She's from Connecticut, and will be on to talk about wellness and what she does in her world for mental wellness. So again, a great way to start the week off. And then we have Mary Baloney. She will be on Tuesday. A good friend of mine that just has done so much for fundraising, and she has a book called Fundraising Freedom. And then after that, we have Michael Davis. He's going to be talking to us about his speaking and his coaching career. So that's great as well. So lots of good speakers and lots of good interviewees coming on, and just I'm thankful for all that, and I'm thankful for all of you with all that you've done and how you've been able to help with everything. So I just can't tell you how proud and appreciative I am. But if there's ever anything I can do for you, by all means, let me know. And as always, keep one eye on the road.